Hello, hello, hello. Welcome to the Brád-Cast episode 8. Today we are going to talk about AI, specifically AI in workforce management. But before we get into all of that, of course, I want to address the bit of a delay and gap we've had in recording. Anyone who's read my post probably knows a little bit about this, but just to kind of speak to it a little bit, there's been two main issues really that have kept me away from recording these podcasts. The first one is, just in case anyone didn't pick up on my very obvious Irish accent, I'm from Dublin, Ireland, and I record here in Dublin, Ireland, and the weather in Dublin and Ireland generally has been unusually hot. There's no other way to say it. We're just not used to this at all, and it's today is actually the first day that we've had something resembling a break. We've had no rain in Dublin in over 2 weeks, and yeah, it's been tough. We've had temperatures kind of frequently in the kind of 25 to 30 degree, and I record up here in my attic office, and hot air rises, as we all know, so the actual temperature inside this attic has been in excess of 30 degrees on most days. It's very, very uncomfortable, and of course you might just say, well, why don't you just open a window? Of course I could. That would certainly alleviate the heat, but then I'm exposed to all that goes on outside this window, which is, there's a lot of people getting work done to their homes and etc. etc. So that's been the first kind of issue getting in the way. And the other issue is that there was actually last week I attempted to come up here and record, and my former Dell Latitude just died completely. And I was like, oh my God, like I think the universe is actually trying to conspire against me. And so I didn't have any other options. I was kind of like, okay, what do I tried to troubleshoot, as you do. You try to reboot, and that wasn't working, and etc. etc. So I ended up having no other option but to essentially bite the bullet and go and get a new Dell Latitude, which I did, and then which is great. But then of course my files, my recording files, were still locked away in my previous laptop, so I had to then dive into a world of how to literally screwdriver out, open up the old Dell Latitude, taking out the old drive, then having to figure out how to acquire the correct cable so I could then plug the drive into my new laptop and see if there was any way to recover my files. So it's been fun. it's been fun and eventful. But like a lot of things, I tried to take the positives. It was certainly annoying having to work through all of these issues, but like a lot of things, if you try to focus on, okay, step back for a minute, now I know how to recover files, I know how to open up a laptop and kind of tinker around with recovering files, etc. etc. So a couple of new skills learned along the way. But anyway, so that's, what's that, 3 minutes on me kind of groveling and explaining why there's been a gap in making these episodes. So that's that. Apologies once again. So episode 8, I've decided as well, but while I've been kind of encountering all these problems, like deciding what will be the this particular episode, I think the time is right. We've a number of episodes in the back catalogue now at this stage. The time is right, I think, to probably talk about AI, because everyone is talking about AI, right? It's the only conversation in town. But the reason I think the time is right is because I recently completed my MBA with Dublin Business School, and I completed my dissertation paper, which was specifically on AI in workforce management. So I did a bit of research on this, and I submitted that paper back in May, and I just in the last couple of weeks got my results back, and I'm very happy that I obtained a first class honours distinction. My paper was received very, very well, so I feel like the research and the findings that I had on this particular topic, I feel like I've got some footing or some sort of standing in the world here, that I can offer my opinion, and my opinion hopefully will matter for something. So what I want to say about it. So start off by saying, okay, so we want to talk about AI, specifically AI as it relates to workforce management. So what's the problem statement, right? So I think we've probably all heard it. The problem statement is, AI is going to end all of workforce management, and probably a few other business disciplines while we're at it. AI is eventually going to weed its way into everywhere, and it's just going to end it all. Okay, so here's the thing: AI doesn't decide whether people lose their jobs, leaders do. And there was a recent story in the news which I want to kind of bring as a hopefully as an example of, like, some positivity around this whole AI discussion about whether it's doom and gloom or whether it's a good thing or a bad thing, etc., etc. So there was a great news article about IKEA or IKEA. I never know which is the correct way, but let's go with IKEA. I think we all say it that way in Ireland, right? So IKEA recently, there was a news article on them which basically showed that they had implemented AI into their company around about 2021 to fundamentally replace basic customer service activities, and it was very successful. So they were able to essentially eliminate roles. And you might kind of go, well, Anthony, isn't that just proof right there? Here you go, you're talking about a company, they introduced AI and they eliminated roles. But here's the thing: they eliminated the role to a very, very large extent, basic customer service, but that didn't immediately equate into them removing people from the company. What they simply did is they identified the people whose role it was to provide that particular task. AI was now handling that, so the people were then offered the opportunity to upskill, repurpose into other roles. And the other roles actually, I think, was quite good. What IKEA did is they looked at their customers and said, right, well, now that AI is taking care of all your basics, your basic customer service, like, I don't know, I've lost my order, or my order is wrong, or how do I get this spare part, or whatever it was, and they didn't need humans to do that. They asked their customers, well, what do you need? And it turns out the customers of IKEA said, well, we'd love more advice and guidance around designing a kitchen or designing whatever it was. So IKEA said, well, sure, we've got a whole bunch of people who have spare time now, so they got busy with this, and now they repurpose all those people into doing providing this type of work remotely. So I believe you can book time with one of these IKEA specialists now, and they will give you all the advice on where your cooker and fridge and all the rest of it should go. So what? Well, the so what is like, well, IKEA are saying, well, it was a complete success story because as a direct consequence of this, they've increased their profits, right? And let's make no bones about it, that's what every company is trying to do. But they did. I think it's a great example of a company who is, or has done and shown shown quite clearly that it is possible to use AI in a responsible, intelligent way that doesn't necessarily have to mean people lose their jobs, and can also generate extra profit and revenue for the company. So yeah. Anyway, so that's out there. I'm not sponsored by IKEA, by the way, although IKEA are welcome to sponsor me if they so wish. So that's kind of the problem statement. And and I think we all know as well, you can almost feel, I've written on LinkedIn a bunch of times around this, and I've said stuff like around, you can sense people's panic and fear, and it kind of, for some of us are of a certain vintage, we might remember the internet craze. So when there was a time when the internet was very, very new, and the concept of a website was very alien to a lot of people. And at that time, of course, a lot of companies were, what is a website? And then they find out what a website is, and they're like, okay, so that's what a website is. Do we need one of them? But there was a fear, and for thousands, if not millions, of companies all over the world, they just they jumped in through fear and panic, because it was like, well, you don't want to get left behind, right? You don't want to be that company when everyone else has a lovely website, and you get to a point in time where your customer is now going, why, where's your website? And you don't want to look like that kind of, late to the party sort of person. So a lot of people did that. The AI kind of feels like companies are reacting in that same way again, which is like, yeah, we have an idea what AI is doing, but does it really fit for our company? Do we need it? But yet a lot of companies are kind of saying, well, whatever everyone's doing it, so we better do it. We better get on. So this is where my research kind of looked into it. And I suppose when I started my research, my dissertation paper, I thought I was going to be researching AI, but I wasn't. In fact, I ended up researching people, because it wasn't AI is just a tool, right? It's Excel, it's a database, it's a whatever you want to, it's just another tool. That's all it is. It's a very powerful tool. It's certainly an important tool, and it's going to it is changing the game, already has changed the game, and it's going to continue to keep changing everyone's games. I'll do inverted commas there in my podcast, inverted commas, which is always very helpful for people who can't see me. But yeah, it's not to be afraid. It's not something to be afraid of. The real challenge with AI though is the organizational change. And that's really what my paper kind of really got into and highlighted a lot of, opportunities. And there's even opportunities even there for further research, which I hope to pick up and actually do myself when I find the time. So there was a great, when I was researching, there was one particular paper that I ran into, which I thought was very, I referenced it a lot in my paper, and I'm gonna give you the example here, because I thought it was like, oh my god, that is just the perfect example. The AI problem is not a new problem. It's actually a very old problem. And so I ran into a paper by some people called Trist and Bamford, who wrote a paper in 1951, right? Which led to the creation of something out there, which, I didn't know until I got into this, but there's something out there in the world, and some of you may already be aware of this. It's called socio-technical systems theory, or STS, right? And basically it comes from there was I don't know whether it was 1950s or 1940s, probably earlier than that. But there was a mine. We might have some awareness of the mining industry, and in the mining industry, very tough labor, manual work. Men usually had to go down and dig coal and dig whatever out of the earth, and it was all very, very hard, unbelievable work, right? And some people at the time looked at how to improve that situation, and they came up with some people introduced automation, or they introduced a new process into the thing, which would basically introduce sort of moving production lines and would speed there was no doubt about it. What they were introducing was, on paper, no doubt about it, was going to help the process of extracting minerals out of the earth and getting them out was going to be, like, I don't know, times 10 faster and all this sort of stuff. So they implemented it, and it was a complete disaster, because there was zero work had been done with the miners themselves to kind of explain to them, this is what is happening, this is why we're doing it, and this is what it's going to mean for you as a miner. Your work is going to be different, very different. And because they didn't do any of this, it was just kind of landed on them one day, and they were like, you do this. Suddenly things like, the kind of the ways of working that these miners had been used to working through for years and years, like, I show up to work, they have they work in little teams, my buddies, my friends, we do this, we have our way of doing it. I trust this guy. I know if he does this, I can do that, etc., etc. And we know when we get X amount of work done, we have a break and we have a laugh and we try to, they had figured out their own social construct, I suppose, of trying to exist and, in a very, very tough employment situation. So when somebody came along, the guys in suits, I suppose, when the guys in suits came along and tell them, hey, don't worry, we're going to speed this all along. It was completely alien to them, and they didn't like it, and it was they revolted against it in a big, big way, and yeah, it was ultimately, they had to the company had to abandon the idea and kind of come back at this from a different angle. But when I read this paper as part of my research into workforce management and AI, I was like, well, doesn't this just sound like, like a blast from the past? Like, here we go. Isn't this just the same thing all over again? Because how many companies today are doing much the same thing? They're purchasing an AI solution, and they probably just drop it on somebody, and it gets dropped on workforce management teams, and I'm sure it gets dropped on other groups too, like I'm sure the quality teams and the I don't know, all sorts of groups in organizations. But the point being is that you just drop it on them and they go, hey, listen, you probably heard AI is all the rage, it's all the cool, it's but don't worry, your leader here, your CEO, has gone off and spent substantial amounts of money on investing in this technology. Here it is. Go get busy. Go make all our business faster, better, and all that goes with it. That would be a mistake to do it that way. Obviously, I'm phrasing this in a very obvious and deliberately provocative way, right? But the essence is still true, right? The research that I did really, really showed that the success of AI implementation is really not in how good the AI actually is itself, or how insightful the AI tool is that you've particularly. It's really, really the success of it is how well have you paid attention to this whole idea of socio-technical systems theory? How well have you put any work into helping the people who are going to have to, or are now being requested to engage with this new AI technology? How well have you engaged with them and helped to alleviate, sorry, is probably a better word. How well have you worked to alleviate their fears, their concerns? What's it going to mean? And on and on and on and on. So so AI doesn't fail because of technology. It fails because of the lack of trust, the communication, the fear factor, unclear ownership. Oh my God, that was a huge one as well, which is that I'd never thought about it until I kind of had to think about it, which was this idea, particularly in workforce management. So when a decision is made, who is responsible? And I think what I ended up surveying about 100 people, and I got, we crunched the data and we did all that kind of stuff, and that was great. But what it clearly showed is this idea of the unclear ownership piece, which is what am I trying to say? Sorry, that was an unusual pause. Let's forget about AI for a second and just think about what did workforce management look like before AI was even around. When workforce management groups come up with, here's what we should do, here's the answer, this is the schedule, this is the forecast, this is the answer to the problem, this is the plan, this is the and we're all there. The workforce management individuals, or the group of individuals, ultimately are going to be held accountable to how correct or incorrect they are, right? So if it's all wrong, if the forecast is all wrong, or these schedules are just terrible schedules, blah blah, there'll eventually be a reckoning day, right, where there'll be a sit down and people will want to go, what the hell were you doing? Like, where were you coming at? And people, leaders, operational leaders, business leaders will want answers, and they want answers from people. The introduction of AI doesn't change that. And workforce management people are acutely aware of that dynamic. That we need to be mostly correct most of the time, because if we're not, what's the point of us being around, right? We're that's our key value proposition to most organizations, is that we're pretty good at forecasting and providing guidance and all that goes with that. It won't be acceptable if, in a new world where AI is now very much part of the the decision making process inside workforce management, it certainly won't be acceptable if it all goes wrong, or we end up with bad results, bad KPIs, etc., etc. There's no workforce management group in the world, I think, is going to get away with then explaining that away with, well, that's AI for you, huh? We put X, Y, and Z into an AI proposed. We should do whatever, and that turns out to be wrong. So because of that, my paper basically showed that there is this hesitancy, or this sort of like workforce management adoption of workforce management professionals' adoption of AI technology into their space is incredibly limited, right? And there's two reasons for that. One is the fear, as I said, right, which is like, it's the black box theory, right? It's the, workforce management people, if we don't, I believe that most people in workforce management are inherently inquisitive, or to say it a different way, nosy. I think that most workforce management people are that way inclined. And if they want to know, but why, but how did you calculate it? Whoa, and all this. So if the AI tool that they're being asked to now engage with is not providing that level of transparency, and it's just kind of like, all you're left with is like going, well, I plugged, a forecast into AI and it came up with this as the answer. I don't really understand how it did that. Then the WFM practitioner is unlikely to proceed with it because they don't understand it, and ultimately they know that down the road, when that reckoning day comes along, they could potentially be setting themselves up for a very, very difficult conversation, which is, what the hell went wrong, and what are you going to say? Oh, I don't know. I don't. What do you mean you don't know? What do you mean? Do you not know how to use this AI thing? Oh, well, I do, but I don't really know what it's doing. You see. So that's one of the first kind of blockers, I think, my research showed is a kind of an obstacle to effective adoption or integration of AI into workforce management. The second part is also not also the second part that is part of this equation is workforce management has, for the longest time, been a very AI rich area anyway, right? A lot of these supposedly AI enhancements into workforce management space are probably, and I'm being very unkind now to a lot of companies who who sell work for or AI technology to groups. But for some of us who've been around a long while, we know like that that workforce management, good old fashioned workforce management tools and systems have been tools and systems that were built up on algorithmic capabilities. And we used to just call these things automation, right? Where, it's not unusual, like for that older workforce management tools and systems would generate a forecast for you. Of course it did, because it would be fed historical information, it would run algorithms, it would do all the time series analysis for you in the background, and it would generate a forecast. The terms that used to just be applied to that type of technology or that type of activity, we used to just use words like algorithms and automation. Those words have now been repackaged and resold to people as in, no, this is AI, this is artificial intelligence. And I've really, really dug deep into trying to understand, well, where is the line between algorithms and automation versus at what point does it start becoming truly artificial intelligence? might kind of pick that up a different day. But for now, that was another kind of kind of key finding, I think, in the paper, which was, you know, what does, so back to the start, right? So what does AI mean for workforce management specifically? It's not as hugely impactful as some people might think it would be, or as some people might wish it to be, because again, for all the reasons. So, it's, you know, it's not exactly new, right? It's not kind of like, oh my God, wow, for a lot of WFM people, it's kind of like, it's just the kind of the next sort of evolutionary step on a path that has already been very clearly set out over the last 20-30 years, right? So it's not that kind of, you know, big bang sort of kind of thing that it might do in other areas that haven't been as rich with algorithms and automations. I could easily see, and I think I have seen, the for groups that perform quality assessments, where, you know, that was a very manual process where one person had to physically listen and monitor, you know, whether in real time or in a recording sort of scenario, the quality of a CSA's you know, the quality. That's the only word for it. Now AI can really kind of do. I can see how that's a huge game changer for that space. You know, but in WFM, not so much. So yeah, so that was kind of like one of the real big kind of aha moments for me. And is what has ultimately led me to this sort of idea of like that AI, anyone who tells me that AI is going to replace workforce management, I disagree. I really do disagree. Because the true I disagree because I don't think that it's going to replace, and what I do see it being is this brings me to the next kind of key word in this whole thing, which is this idea of augmentative approach. It's not whether it's will we, won't we. It's not binary. It's like, it's yes, we will get it. It won't replace. It will just help make things better, improve what we do. Similar back to the kind of the IKEA story I was talking about earlier on, but, you know, slightly different. I think, you know, so I think something I've said before is like, it's a good WFM hasn't always just been mathematics. You know, forecasting isn't just statistics. Scheduling isn't just optimization. It's about understanding behavior, culture, operations, customers, understanding people, and AI doesn't naturally understand organizational politics. The you know, people do, right? I've talked about trust, talked about explainable AI. So yeah, the augmentative piece is the best decisions, I think, really do come from combining AI speed, human judgment, and business experience. That's what my research was showing. Other people's kind of, you know, papers around AI generally, not specifically in workforce management, they're also saying something very, very similar. There's more and more research, academic people out there are kind of coming to this kind of conclusion over and over and over again, which is that to really make AI successful, you need to stop thinking about how do I get it in to replace. It's about how do I get it in to complement and augment, and, you know, help to essentially look at it as a tool. If you're looking at it as something that's going to replace and save a few quid, you're probably on a hiding to nothing. And again, you know, some of us have probably seen some of the news articles where companies who did go down that road quite heavily, saying this is the winner, we're going to invest heavily here, we're going to eliminate a load of jobs. They've let AI essentially run, you know, for, you know, running the wild there for a while, and now they're kind of realizing, oh, this is not really what we wanted. It's not delivering it's not really giving us the insights. It's not really giving us the you know, what am I trying to say? It's not giving us what we wanted, and now they're scaling back. You know, they're trying to rehire back people that they let go, and they're you know, they're kind of reverse engineering their way back into a place like where eventually it's kind of back to that sort of augmentative space again. What else did I want to say? Don't automate rubbish. Yes, this is one of the I think we've all heard this sort of garbage in, garbage out, and one of the things for anyone who has engaged with AI, even like your ChatGPTs or whatever like that, none of these tools are capable so far, from what I've seen. None of them are capable of basically saying, if you give them information and ask them, hey, can you automate this or can you do whatever? The answer is always yes. Yes, of course I can. Here you go. The answer is never, hold on, what is this rubbish you're giving me? This looks terrible. AI doesn't do that. It never has done, as far as I know, and I don't think it ever will. It is a machine at the end of the day, and if you give it a load of information or data, it's gonna just, its jumping off spot is okay, this is good, and let me work through it, and it will generate something. Garbage in, garbage out. AI people, if you've got people, analysts, they know what, well, at least they should do, they know what garbage looks like. AI won't, and that's a key difference, right? So just kind of keep that in mind too. And yeah, so looking ahead, AI isn't replacing workforce management. I think it's elevating it. As the administrative work is kind of reducing, I'm hoping that this leads to strategic kind of capability increasing. And the planners who embrace AI won't become less valuable, they'll become more valuable because they spend more time solving business problems instead of producing spreadsheets. Yes, absolutely. I that's what I think, about it. And yeah, I'm first of all, I'm just glad to be back on the microphone again and have everything working, and get it, episode 8 out there into the universe. And yeah, that's just like, I don't know, half an hour there of kind of spilling out my kind of thoughts around what AI is doing for workforce management and where we are at the moment. Again, apologies to anyone who is in the game of selling AI to workforce management groups. I'm not trying to disparage or cast. I'm not trying to kind of I'm not trying to make it feel like that there's a bit of a con going on. I mean, if that was the space I was in, I'd probably do it too. But yeah, I think trying to sell AI to workforce management is a much tougher proposition than trying to sell AI to other areas. Because again, I think once you understand that workforce management is a space that, we've been dealing with AI without calling it AI for a long time. So skepticism is there, cynicism is there. There's very much, kind of like, okay, well, what is it you're saying you can do for me? Oh, we can our AI tool can create your forecast. Going, well, we've had tools that do that before. What else can you do? We can do your schedules for you. Yeah, again, we've had tools that can do that too. What else can you do? Well, we can highlight where your ups and downs, your pluses, minuses are. Yeah, again, we've had tools that can do that. So you can see how, like, it's a tough space to kind of to get in. But I certainly enjoyed researching the topic and writing the paper and kind of getting into all the ins and outs of it. And I particularly liked the historical kind of background on all of this, like like I said, the Tristan Banford paper from 1951 about the miners, and kind of socio-technology systems theory. I really enjoyed all that aspect of it. So yeah, so AI in workforce management, yes, it's new. Yes, it's all kind of, it's all the rage, and it's all anyone wants to talk about. And of course, it's easy for people to say it's going to replace everyone's job. It's not as new as a lot of people think it is. And yeah, that's all I wanted to say. So yeah, so excuse me. I'm going to wrap it up there. We're 34 minutes. Thank you for sticking with me. And as always, if you have any questions or comments, I'd love to hear from you. If you, particularly if you disagree with me, I always love the ones where people are going, hey, where were you going with that one? You're just wrong. And keep in mind as well, I think I mentioned as well that I do intend to further research this topic. So if anyone is listening to everything I've said and wants to read my paper and maybe wants to get involved, I'm open to all offers. To if there's a particular angle on this whole kind of AI and workforce management that you think I'm missing, I'd love to hear from you, and we can talk it through. So with that, I'm going to look out the window. Yep, it's still cloudy in Dublin. It's the temperature has not spiked, which is fantastic. So I'm going to say I'll talk to you guys again in about another week. That is, of course, assuming that we don't have a return to the unusual heat wave that we have been experiencing. But I have a feeling, Ireland being Ireland, I think the doom and gloom is here to stay. So yeah, thank you once again, and I will talk to you again soon. Bye bye.